Olivia Carter was the picture of the perfect wife, mother of 3, former teacher turned homemaker, and partner to one of Chicago's most respected surgeons, Dr. Nathan Carter. For 15 years she built a life around love, loyalty, and trust. But everything shattered the day she found a crimson lipstick stain on her husband's shirt. What started as a suspected affair spiraled into something far darker: financial betrayal, medical fraud, and the ultimate deception. Her children were not biologically Nathan's by his design. As Olivia unraveled layers of lies, she uncovered a calculated scheme that affected not only her family but dozens of others. She stayed silent until she didn't. What happens when a woman who's been lied to for over a decade decides to fight back? Not with vengeance but with truth. Stay tuned for a story that will leave you stunned. You're watching this from YouTube/Facebook/TikTok/wherever viewers are. And this is a story you won't forget. I found the shirt by accident. Folded in on itself, half hidden behind Nathan's perfectly polished dress shoes, its cotton edge peeking out from the corner of his gym bag. I wasn't looking for trouble. I was just trying to gather his suits for the dry cleaners like I had done 100 times before. I had dropped the twins off at school, taken Emma to piano, and returned to our quiet colonial-style home nestled in suburban Chicago. The house looked exactly how I had always imagined when I gave up my teaching career to support my husband's. Clean lines. White picket fence. Soft morning light through the bay windows. Everything in place. Including the lie. I pulled the shirt from the bag, puzzled by its presence. Nathan had claimed he had an emergency surgery the night before. But surgeons don't wear white dress shirts into the operating room. And they certainly don't walk out with blood-red lipstick smudged along the collar. For a moment I couldn't move. My fingers trembled as they gripped the fabric, my breath catching somewhere between disbelief and nausea. I stared at that crimson smear so vivid against the white and knew, this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a message. And it wasn't for me. I stood there in our walk-in closet, surrounded by shelves he'd custom installed himself, and the silence around me turned unbearable. 15 years of marriage. 3 beautiful children. Endless nights spent supporting his climb through medical school, residency, and hospital boardrooms. And now, in a single thread of red, it all began to unravel. Nathan Carter wasn't just any man. He was Dr. Nathan Carter, lead cardiothoracic surgeon at one of the most prestigious medical centers in Illinois. Calm hands in the operating room. Praised for his precision. Admired by peers. Loved, so I thought, by me. He had always been composed, professional, sharp-suited, and softer-spoken. The kind of man you trusted. I was the perfect wife. That was what people said. Olivia Carter. PTA president. Science fair volunteer. Gifted organizer of hospital fundraising galas. Always poised, always smiling, always there. I had made it my mission to keep our family polished and intact, like the shine on his shoes. And now I was holding a crumpled shirt and wondering how long I had been performing in a life that wasn't mine. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe someone brushed against him. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. But deep down I already knew. This wasn't new. This wasn't the first time. It was just the first time he got careless enough for me to find it. I sat down on the bench in our closet, the shirt still clenched in my hands. The wall clock ticked louder than usual. Tuesday. 9:17 a.m. I would remember that moment for the rest of my life. I replayed our recent days in my mind like a silent film. Nathan working late. Weekend trips he claimed were hospital retreats. Our conversations reduced to logistics. Who was picking up the twins, which bottle of wine to bring to the fundraiser, what tie matched which suit. Affection had been replaced by routine. Passion replaced by performance. And I had let it happen. I had explained away the signs, excused the coldness, accepted the distance. I had blamed myself when he turned away from my touch, convinced it was exhaustion, pressure, stress. I bought new lingerie, scheduled surprise dinners, read every relationship column I could find. I kept thinking if I tried harder, smiled more, stayed patient, we could fix it. But this shirt, this stain didn't lie. It was the kind of truth you don't unsee. I rose slowly, folded the shirt and placed it in a plastic garment bag. My hands no longer shook. My heart did. Somewhere in the house, Emma's piano lesson echoed through the baby monitor. A small melody played on, sweet and unaware. I wanted to scream. Instead, I closed the closet door, walked downstairs, and made myself coffee with trembling fingers. Outside, the world kept turning. Our neighbors waved as they passed on their morning jogs. The postman dropped letters into our box. And I stood behind a window watching them live their normal, oblivious lives while mine had just split in half. The moment passed, but it left something behind, a quiet rage. A sharp awareness that nothing I believed about my marriage was safe anymore. The red lipstick was just the first sign. The real story, the one that would change everything, was still buried, waiting to be found. But that truth would begin to surface when I opened Nathan's phone for the first time. The day I opened Nathan's phone, I wasn't searching for evidence. I wasn't looking to catch him in a lie. All I needed was to check his calendar. Our 15th anniversary was approaching, and I had planned a surprise weekend in Napa Valley. It was where we had honeymooned, where we toasted a future I had foolishly believed in. He had just stepped into the shower and his phone buzzed on the granite countertop. I picked it up, meaning only to find a free weekend. The screen lit up with a new message. From someone named Dr. Rebecca Morgan. My breath caught before I even read it. Then I did. Last night was amazing. I can still feel you. When are you leaving her? My hands went cold. I felt them go numb, but my thumb moved anyway. I tapped the screen and the message thread unfolded like a slow, cruel punch to the chest. Hundreds of texts. Intimate. Sexual. Casual. Calculated. Photos sent late at night. Conversations dripping with affection, inside jokes, whispered plans, hotel names, and worse. Mockery. Jokes about me. About my cooking. My routine. Poor Olivia, she wrote once. Still thinks she's surprising you for your anniversary. My face burned. My body turned to stone. I scrolled and scrolled. The timeline stretched back 8 months. That entire time, while I was helping Emma practice her scales, while I was baking cupcakes for the twins' science night, he had been telling another woman things he had long stopped saying to me. He had made her promises. He had made her laugh. I returned the phone to the counter without a sound. I made his coffee like I did every morning. I added the cinnamon he liked. I kissed his cheek as he left for the hospital. And then I went upstairs and vomited until nothing came up but air and rage. That night, once the kids were asleep and the house had gone still, I walked into our bedroom. Nathan sat at the edge of the bed, scrolling through his tablet. I stood in the doorway, my heart loud in my ears, my voice buried somewhere deep, but steady when it finally rose. Are you sleeping with Rebecca Morgan? He looked up, unbothered. No shock. No denial. Just a slow removal of his reading glasses and a long exhale. Yes. That was it. How long? He shrugged. Does it matter? I studied his face, searching for the man I once married. But what looked back at me was someone cold. Surgical. I want to divorce Olivia, he said, setting his tablet aside like this was just a business decision. This life, it's not who I am anymore. I stared at him, unsure whether to laugh or cry. We built this life together, I said, my voice cracking. He gestured around the room like it was a prison cell. I gave it 15 years. I'm 45. If I'm going to start over, it has to be now. My legs felt unsteady, but I stayed upright. You built your career because I gave you the freedom to, I said. I held everything together while you became the man you wanted to be. He didn't flinch. He just smiled bitterly. I save lives every day, Olivia. What do you do? Organize bake sales? Keep my ties sorted by color. The words hit harder than I expected. Not because they were cruel, though they were, but because I had given up so much and this was how he measured it. He stood, walked to the dresser, removed his watch, placed it down with the kind of precision he used in the operating room. You'll be taken care of financially. The kids will adjust. That night he slept in the guest room. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, unable to blink away the fragments of my past. Every memory began to rot in my hands. Every smile I had believed in now felt like a lie I'd told myself. At dawn he left before the kids woke up. On the kitchen counter, beside the note about needing more eggs, he left the business card for his divorce attorney. Our marriage hadn't collapsed overnight. It had been crumbling quietly like a house eaten from within. And I hadn't noticed because I was too busy wallpapering the cracks. But the lipstick stain and the affair were only surface damage. What I hadn't realized yet was that Nathan's betrayal went far deeper than infidelity. And the truth that would shatter me completely was already hiding in the pages of our financial records. I didn't cry after Nathan left. Not when I found the text. Not when he confirmed the affair. Not even when I signed the retainer for Patricia Klein, one of the top divorce attorneys in Oak Hill County. But when I opened the safe in our home office and saw the years of financial records stacked in neat chronological order, our life measured in numbers, documents, and signatures, I felt something shift. Not sadness. Not anger. Something sharper. A clarity that cut through the fog. Patricia had one instruction for me that day. Document everything. Especially the money, she said. People like Nathan plan their exits long before the affair begins. If he's hiding something, we'll find it on paper. That night, after the kids were tucked into bed and I assured them Daddy was just busy at the hospital, I sat on the floor with those files. Tax returns. Investment portfolios. Mortgage statements. I had never paid attention to the details before. I trusted Nathan with the numbers. He had the financial advisor. He signed the checks. I signed when asked. But buried in those papers, patterns began to form. Withdrawals. Regular. Large. Quiet. 15,000 here. 7,000 there. Every few weeks over the past 2 years, money had been leaving our joint savings account and disappearing into an entity I didn't recognize. Maplewood Holdings, LC. No invoices. No emails. No mention in any conversation. Over $250,000. Gone. I took the files to Patricia the next morning. Her brow furrowed as she reviewed the statements, tapping the pages with her red lacquered nails. This isn't just standard divorce shielding, she said. This pattern, it's premeditated. Calculated. He's been siphoning funds for something, or someone, for quite a while. I felt my chest tighten. Can we find out what Maplewood Holdings is? Patricia nodded. Already on it. 2 days later, her investigator confirmed the company was registered solely in Nathan's name. A shell entity with no listed activity, no staff, and a P.O. box address. It didn't provide services. It didn't sell goods. It simply received money. Diverting family assets, Patricia said. He's building a cushion. Likely in anticipation of the divorce. That night, I sat alone in the living room, wine untouched, legal pads spread across the coffee table. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was theft. Manipulation. The life I thought we were living. The vacations, the family dinners, the future I was still trying to hold on to, had been hollowed out from the inside while Nathan smiled through it all. The thought that I had been so naive, so trusting made me sick. And yet, I still didn't know the whole story. Because just as I was about to close the folder, Patricia called. There's something else, she said. A name came up that I think you should look into. Dr. Charles Brooks. The name hit a distant note in my memory. I remembered him vaguely. Quiet. Polite. Always standing just outside the group at hospital galas. He left Ashford Medical Center 3 years ago without explanation. I'd asked Nathan about it once. He had waved it off. Professional differences, he had said. Now, Patricia looked up from her computer screen. Dr. Brooks came up in another divorce case I handled. Similar patterns. Same hospital. Same timeline. You might want to talk to him. It took me 5 phone calls to track him down. He now worked at a small family clinic 40 miles outside the city. His receptionist was reluctant to put me through, but when I gave her my name there was a long pause. She transferred me without another word. Mrs. Carter, Dr. Brooks said, his voice quiet, heavy. I've been expecting this call. The words made the back of my neck prickle. We met the next day at a coffee shop halfway between our towns. He had aged, his hair now gray at the temples, the lines around his eyes deeper than I remembered. He ordered black coffee. No cream. No sugar. I always wondered which of yous would break first, he said softly. Me with my conscience, or Nathan with his arrogance. I stared at him, heart thudding in my chest. What are you talking about? He reached into his leather briefcase and pulled out a small USB drive. Placed it between us. Then he looked me in the eye. There's something you need to know about the fertility clinic at Ashford. And what he told me in the next hour shattered what little I had left to hold on to. The coffee grew cold between us. Dr. Charles Brooks hadn't touched his cup. Neither had I. My fingers rested on the edge of the table, but I couldn't feel them anymore. He looked older than I remembered, his face drawn, his eyes sunken beneath years of silence. He didn't waste time. I worked in the fertility unit at Ashford for 7 years, he began. I oversaw dozens of IVF cases including yours. 3 failed cycles. 2 successful. Twin boys. Then Emma. I nodded slowly, unsure what I was bracing for. In 2019 I started noticing discrepancies. Embryo reports that didn't match patient files. Lab results altered just enough to go unnoticed unless you were really looking. My throat went dry. Discrepancies. With us? With many couples. But yes. Yours too. He slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside are internal documents. Lab logs. Consent forms. Signatures. Including Nathan's. I stared at it but didn't reach for it. I brought it to Dr. Mercer, the clinic director. He admitted to the substitutions. Claimed it was to improve success rates and protect the hospital's image. But it wasn't just him. Nathan knew. He was complicit. No, I whispered. He wanted children as much as I did. Brooks leaned forward. Nathan has a hereditary heart condition. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Mild in his case. But there's a 50% chance of passing it on. He couldn't risk that. Not for his image. Not for his future. So he ensured his sperm was never used. I shook my head slowly as if denial might make it untrue. He let us believe we were creating a family together, I said. He watched me cry after every failed attempt. He held my hand in recovery rooms. He controlled everything, Brooks said gently. He pulled a small USB drive from his pocket. Hospital records. Authorizations. Nathan signed off on procedural modifications. It's all there. You weren't just lied to, Olivia. You were denied the truth about your own children. My hands trembled as I finally reached for the USB. Why now? I asked. Why come forward? Brooks looked away. I left because I couldn't live with it. But I couldn't speak either. Not without putting my license, my family at risk. Until now, I didn't think anyone would listen. I stared out the window. The parking lot was quiet. A mother was buckling her toddler into a car seat a few spaces away. She smiled when their eyes met. I forced a weak smile back, but inside I was splintering. Was it anonymous? I asked. The donor. Brooks nodded. No records. No names. Nothing you could trace. I felt something collapse inside me. The years of believing that the children I had carried were at least part Nathan, however flawed, however cruel, had still offered some illusion of family. That illusion was gone. He had chosen to erase himself from our children's DNA without telling me, without giving me a choice. Was there ever a chance, I said quietly, that he would have told me the truth? Brooks didn't answer. His silence was my answer. When I got home, the house was still. The twins were in the backyard with their science kits. Emma was on the floor in the living room, coloring outside the lines in her princess book. I watched them from the hallway, heart pounding. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, collecting strands of hair from hairbrushes, toothbrushes, and Nathan's combs still in the master bathroom. He hadn't used it in weeks. The bristles still held a few strands of his perfectly groomed hair. That night, I packaged the samples and shipped them to a discreet genetic testing facility Brooks had recommended. The wait would take 10 days. 10 days to learn whether my children were biologically related to the man I had married. 10 days to confirm, or destroy what I thought I knew. Nathan in the meantime had grown bold. He accelerated the divorce proceedings. Claimed I was emotionally unstable. Questioned my fitness as a parent. His attorney sent carefully worded letters implying that I contributed nothing financial to the marriage. That I might not be able to support the children on my own. I read every letter in silence. I never reacted. I smiled at school drop-offs. Helped the twins finish their solar system models. Sat through Emma's recital and clapped louder than anyone else. I said nothing when the other mothers asked where Nathan was. Busy, I would say. Hospital schedule. You know how it is. But every night when the kids were asleep, I opened my laptop and researched fertility fraud. Medical ethics violations. IVF lawsuits. I found stories that broke my heart. Doctors using their own sperm, clinics switching embryos, families discovering truths they never asked for. But not one story matched mine. Because no one else had been betrayed like this. No one else had been married to the man who orchestrated it all. And when the DNA results came in, there would be no more doubt, only proof. The email came on a Tuesday morning. I had just returned from dropping the kids off at school when the notification appeared. My hands hovered over the keyboard as I read the subject line: DNA paternity test results. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where Nathan and I had once planned birthday parties, budgeted for family vacations, laughed over spilled juice and kindergarten stories. That table now felt like a courtroom. Final. I clicked. The language was clinical. Detached. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested children. The probability of paternity is 0%. 0. Not 1. Not even a fraction of a percent. I read the sentence again. And again. Hoping absurdly that I had misunderstood it. That maybe it was a formatting error. A misfiled report. A cruel technical mistake. But the numbers didn't change. The twins. Emma. None of them were biologically Nathan's. And he had known. From the beginning. He had stood beside me in exam rooms, whispered encouragement during injections, held my hand as embryos were transferred into my body. All the while knowing that he had made sure none of them carried his blood. I didn't cry. There was no space left for that. My grief had hardened into something else. Resolve. I printed 3 copies of the report. One went into a folder for Patricia. The second into a safe deposit box I had opened in my name only. The third I placed in a cream-colored envelope, the kind with the Ashford Medical Center logo, taken from Nathan's home office printer while he was away. I sealed it. Carefully. Precisely. Because it wasn't just paper. It was the beginning of the end of his charade. And I would decide when to deliver it. In the meantime, Nathan continued his campaign. His attorney sent notice requesting full custody of the children. Attached was a thinly veiled character assassination. Claims that I was mentally unwell, emotionally unstable, incapable of providing a stable environment. They cited my lack of income, my absence from the workforce. They painted a picture of a woman unraveling, fragile, unpredictable. It was almost impressive, the confidence with which Nathan moved. The way he thought I would break. That I would crumble under pressure. Accept the settlement. Hand over the house. Hand over the children. Hand over the life he had stolen from me. But what he didn't know was that I was already building something of my own. I met with Patricia and showed her the results. Her eyes narrowed as she read them. "This changes everything," she said. "I want to do this right," I replied. "No screaming. No scandals. Not yet. Let him think I'm compliant. Let him think he's won." Patricia nodded. "Then we'll make him comfortable. Until he's exposed." So I played the part. I smiled during mediation sessions. I agreed to temporary custody arrangements. I pretended to consider his insulting financial offer. I accepted vague explanations for Rebecca's presence at drop-offs. I even thanked him once for trying to keep things civil. He lapped it up. "You're being surprisingly reasonable," he said one afternoon outside the courthouse, his tone laced with arrogance. "I think this will go smoother than I thought." I looked him in the eye and smiled. "The children come first. I just want what's best for everyone." He nodded. Believed me. And all the while I was documenting everything. Every voicemail. Every text. Every passive-aggressive comment from his lawyer. Every bank statement I could get my hands on. Every medical form that bore his signature. I helped the twins with their volcano project for Science Week. Drove Emma to her dance recital. Sat with her afterward while she told me how nervous she had been. Kissed her forehead and told her how proud I was. I was still their mother. Whether or not Nathan shared their blood didn't change that. But it did change something else. Gave me power. Because this wasn't just a personal betrayal. It was a medical violation. Fraud. And soon I would no longer be the one quietly surviving in the background. I would be the woman who dismantled his empire. And to begin, I needed to find others who had been deceived like me. Because Nathan's lies weren't mine alone to carry. It started with a name. Then another. And another. Dr. Charles Brooks, true to his word, had given me a list of 27 couples who had undergone fertility treatment at Ashford during Nathan's oversight. He warned me that most wouldn't want to talk. That questioning the origin of their children meant tearing open something sacred. And he was right. I made calls. Sent careful emails. Some never responded. Others hung up. But 5 women agreed to meet. We gathered at a small cafe off the interstate, private enough not to attract attention, quiet enough to share what none of us had ever said aloud before. One by one they told me their stories. Anna and Michael Miller had twin girls with blue eyes and olive skin. Neither of them had those features. They had always dismissed it as a fluke. Genetics were strange, unpredictable. Until Anna found a letter from Ashford dated months after their successful IVF cycle, one she had never seen before. Priya Patel's daughter had developed an autoimmune condition that ran in neither family line. When she asked Ashford for medical background on their donor, she was met with silence. No record. No explanation. Sarah Wilson's voice cracked as she spoke. We had given up. We were told the embryos had failed. Then suddenly the clinic said one had survived. We were so grateful we never questioned it. Tears welled in her eyes. But now, I wonder who my daughter really is. Each story was another stone in the mountain of proof. Not one of us had been told the truth. Not one had given informed consent. We were mothers, yes, but we were also victims of deception. I told them mine. The stain on the shirt. The affair. The DNA test. The 0%. There were no gasps. Just silence. Shared pain. Recognition. We weren't patients, I said softly. We were experiments. That night, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I drove 45 minutes outside the city to meet Diane Fletcher. She had been a nurse at Ashford for over a decade, assigned to the fertility wing for most of that time. Her apartment was modest, cluttered with filing cabinets and boxes stacked floor to ceiling. She met me at the door, eyes cautious, hands trembling slightly as she invited me in. I kept records, she said without prompting. They told me to destroy them when I left. I didn't. We sat at her dining table while she opened a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with patient names, procedure notes, irregularities, each entry written in neat, clinical script. She turned to one marked with my name. The dates matched our IVF cycles. I could hardly breathe. Special instruction from Dr. Carter, she read aloud. Specimen replacement authorized due to quality concerns. No donor identification recorded. She slid the journal toward me. Your husband made the decision without you. I took pictures of every page. Every signature. Every note. My hands stopped shaking. I felt a quiet rage settle in. Not burning, not blinding, just steady. Controlled. Why didn't you come forward? I asked. I tried, she said bitterly. To the hospital administration. To the ethics board. Even the police. Every time the investigation disappeared. Your husband has powerful friends, Mrs. Carter. Her words rang in my ears as she reached for a business card from a drawer. Medical Ethics Investigation Unit. Ask for Agent Michael Dawson. Tell him I sent you. I called the next morning. Agent Dawson's voice was calm but purposeful. We've had complaints but no one willing to go on record. Your evidence could change that. We met 2 days later. I brought the USB drive from Brooks. The journal pages from Diane. The DNA report. The financial records tied to Maplewood Holdings. He studied everything in silence, only breaking it to say, this is bigger than one doctor. He was building a case, but he needed more. If we're going to take this to court, we need additional financial trails. Proof of kickbacks. Testimony from someone still inside. I promised I would get it. I didn't tell him how. And so I continued the act. I was still the agreeable ex-wife. Still the cooperative co-parent. Nathan had grown bold, smug even, assuming my silence meant surrender. He brought Rebecca to school events, smiled for photos, had her wave to other parents like she belonged there. But behind the curtain I was methodical. I photographed documents left on his desk. Recorded conversations where he spoke carelessly, confidently. I tracked the flow of money from Ashford to Maplewood, and from there to offshore accounts no one was meant to find. And in all of it I began to realize something unexpected. Nathan wasn't the only liar in the room. Because when I dug into Rebecca's background, the investigator I hired uncovered something stunning. She wasn't just Nathan's lover. She was someone with her own reason to destroy him. And her connection to Nathan's past ran far deeper than an affair. Rebecca Morgan wasn't who she pretended to be. Her real name was Rebecca Harrington. That was what the private investigator found, buried beneath a series of legal name changes, sealed court documents, and an expired medical license belonging to her mother. I stared at the report in disbelief as the pieces came together with terrifying clarity. 5 years ago, a woman named Madeline Harrington died on Nathan's operating table during a routine valve replacement. She had no known complications, no red flags. But something went wrong. Nathan claimed Madeline had failed to disclose medication that interfered with the procedure. The hospital's internal investigation cleared him of fault. Quietly. Quickly. Almost too quickly. What the investigator discovered, and what Agent Dawson later confirmed, was far more sinister. Nathan had been operating on minimal sleep after a weekend trip to Chicago with Rebecca. He had performed open-heart surgery after 72 hours without rest. He made a mistake. The mistake cost Madeline her life. The hospital buried the truth to protect Nathan's rising star. Ashford paid the family a discreet settlement. No headlines. No lawsuits. Just silence. Madeline's husband died a year later. Heart failure. The kind that comes from grief. Rebecca was left alone, stripped of her identity and driven by something she had nursed in silence for years. Revenge. She changed her name. Switched states. Rebuilt herself. She pursued medicine just as her mother had and positioned herself strategically, first in a different department at Ashford, then closer to Nathan. She bided her time, slowly inserting herself into his professional life. And then into his personal one. She seduced him not because she loved him but because she wanted to dismantle him. And he fell right into her hands. But what Rebecca hadn't accounted for was me. I debated confronting her. Asking if she knew about the IVF, about the donor substitutions, about the paternity. About all the other women. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. But I decided against it. Her motives were emotional. Mine had become surgical. There was no room for volatility in my plan. I didn't want vengeance driven by grief. I wanted the truth, cold and undeniable, to crush everything Nathan had built. I gathered more. Documents Diane Fletcher had forgotten she had. Emails forwarded anonymously from an Ashford employee who claimed they couldn't sleep at night anymore. Testimony from a couple in Arizona, former patients relocated out of fear, who had been told their embryos were non-viable, only to discover later that their sperm had never even been used. Agent Dawson built his legal case while I constructed something else. The dismantling of Nathan Carter's image. It was easy, surprisingly so. Nathan had grown comfortable in his lies. He believed his reputation untouchable. That made him careless. During one of our scheduled co-parenting meetings, I steered the conversation toward the children. We were sitting across from each other at a local cafe. He was half listening, scrolling through his phone. "The twins have your eyes," I said casually. He smirked. "Good genes. Do you ever worry they might inherit your heart condition?" His eyes shot up. "What?" "Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Dr. Brooks mentioned it." His smile faded. Brooks should keep his mouth shut. "Don't our children's health concerns matter?" "There's nothing to worry about," he said quickly. "I had them tested years ago. They're fine." My pulse quickened. "How could you test them without telling me?" "I'm their father. And a doctor. I made a medical decision." That was all I needed. The recorder in my coat pocket captured every word. His acknowledgement of the condition. His unauthorized testing. His continued pretense of biological connection. It was the final piece. As fate would have it, Ashford's annual gala was just weeks away. Nathan had been selected as Physician of the Year. For unwavering ethical standards. The irony was almost poetic. The board sent an invitation addressed to both of us. Nathan texted me soon after. "I'll be attending with Rebecca. You're welcome to come, if it wouldn't be too awkward." I replied with a perfect blend of grace and grief. "I wouldn't miss it. You deserve the recognition." He had no idea. None. I had already met privately with the hospital's board chair, presenting select evidence. A closed-door session was scheduled the same day as the gala. Agent Dawson would be there. So would the district attorney. The stage was set. At home, I ironed the black dress Nathan once said made me look like I was trying too hard. I wore it anyway. Not for him. Not for anyone else. It was time to end the performance. And the night of the gala would become the stage for his public collapse. Thunder rolled low in the distance as I stepped out of the car. The storm had threatened all evening but held back, like the sky itself was waiting for what was about to unfold. The Ashford Medical Center Gala was being held at the Grand Marlowe Hotel, a glass palace lit up with champagne chandeliers and the quiet hum of wealth and prestige. I walked through the revolving doors alone, wearing the black dress Nathan once mocked. My hair swept up. Diamond earrings glittered beneath the lights. The same ones he gave me 10 years ago after a promotion I helped him earn. I wore them tonight like armor. Inside, the ballroom buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the clink of crystal. Nathan stood near the stage, dressed in his signature navy tuxedo. His arm was draped around Rebecca's waist. She wore red, bold, commanding, the exact shade of lipstick that began it all. They looked like a power couple. Untouchable. Perfect. A mirage. As I passed through the crowd, people offered practiced sympathy. Small talk disguised as concern. "So brave of you to come," whispered Margaret Reynolds, wife of the chief of surgery. Her voice was low, eyes flicking toward Nathan and Rebecca. I smiled politely. I wouldn't miss seeing him receive the recognition he deserves. She faltered. Looked away. Even then no one really saw me. But they were about to. The awards ceremony began promptly. A hush settled as the hospital board chair, Dr. Helena Winters, took the stage. She smiled, poised, as she introduced Nathan with carefully crafted praise. His dedication. His integrity. His brilliance. The applause was deafening when he walked up, all humility and charm. He accepted the crystal trophy with a speech he'd probably rehearsed in front of a mirror. "Medicine isn't just about science," he said into the microphone. "It's about trust. The sacred bond between doctor and patient. And ethics must guide every decision we make." I watched Rebecca during his speech. Her back was straight, her expression composed. But her fingers twitched slightly as she adjusted her bracelet. She had spent years building a revenge arc of her own, but even she didn't know what was about to happen. As the room erupted into another round of applause, I stepped out quietly. 20 minutes later, I walked into Vincenzo's, the same restaurant where Nathan had proposed 15 years ago. He had made a reservation to celebrate his award. Bold. Or foolish. The maitre d' recognized me instantly. "Mrs. Carter," he said warmly. "Dr. Carter mentioned you might join them." I nodded. He has a habit of assuming I'll show up. Nathan and Rebecca were seated at our old table near the window. The same one we'd sat at when we were still in love. Or when I still believed we were. They looked up as I approached. Nathan's smile was smug. "Olivia. This is unexpected." "Is it?" I said, sliding into the empty chair. "You told the maitre d' I might come." "Courtesy," he replied. "Didn't think you actually would." Rebecca shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps I should give you two a moment." "Please stay," I said. "You've earned your place at this table." Or should I say, Rebecca Harrington? Color drained from her face. Nathan blinked, confused. "What is this?" I placed the cream-colored envelope on the table and looked at him. "Come. Rebecca knows." "Don't you?" I said, turning to her. "Daughter of Madeline Harrington. The patient who died on your table, Nathan. The surgery you botched after spending the weekend in Chicago with her daughter. The hospital paid to cover it. But not enough, clearly." He turned to Rebecca, his voice rising. "Is this true?" Her silence said everything. While he floundered, I pushed the envelope toward him. "Congratulations on your freedom," I said. "I think you'll find this interesting." Nathan opened it slowly. The DNA test results slid into his lap. As he read, I watched his face contort. Confusion. Denial. This is impossible." "No," I said quietly. "It's clinical. Verified. You ensured your sperm was never used. You lied to me. For 15 years. Rebecca looked from me to him. "What is she talking about?" "Nothing," Nathan snapped. "She's making this up." I leaned forward. "Then you won't mind explaining it to the hospital board." He froze. Behind me the doors opened. Dr. Winters stepped inside. Beside her, Agent Dawson. 2 plainclothes officers followed closely. Silence swept the restaurant as they approached. "Dr. Nathan Carter," Dawson said firmly, "you are under arrest for medical fraud, financial crimes, and ethical violations under the Medical Practice Act." Nathan shot to his feet. "You planned this." You had 15 years, I said. I only needed 3 months. The officers cuffed him while diners whispered and watched. Rebecca sat frozen, her wine untouched. I didn't know about the children, she said finally. I believe you, I replied. Your mother deserved justice too. In the weeks that followed, the story exploded. News outlets. Lawsuits. The clinic was shut down. Families came forward. Nathan's assets were frozen. His medical license suspended. A forensic accountant recovered funds, securing a trust for our children. Ashford asked Dr. Brooks to lead a new ethics committee. He surprised me by asking if I'd co-chair. I said yes. 6 months later, I met Rebecca for coffee. She looked tired. Do you regret it? She asked. Exposing everything? I thought about it. About Emma's laugh. The boys' crooked smiles. They'll learn the truth one day, I said. But they'll also know I never stopped fighting for them. That night, Emma curled into my lap and asked, Mom, if he's not really our dad, then who am I? I held her close. Kissed her hair. Your love. You are mine. And that's all that matters. The perfect life had been a lie. But the truth? The truth set us free. And so Olivia's story comes to an end, not with revenge but with reclamation. She walked through fire, not only to expose her husband's betrayal, but to rebuild the identity that had been buried beneath years of sacrifice, silence, and carefully curated illusions. What Nathan tried to erase, she reclaimed. What was stolen from her, she uncovered, piece by painful piece, until the truth stood naked and irreversible in the light. This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's a story of agency. Of a woman who refused to be a victim. Who transformed devastation into clarity and clarity into strength. Olivia didn't just bring justice for herself. She brought it for every family manipulated behind sterile walls and falsified records. And in doing so, she proved that truth, when faced head-on, becomes the most powerful form of liberation. But now we want to hear from you. If you were in Olivia's shoes, would you have done the same? Or walked away quietly, carrying the truth in silence? If this story resonated with you, stirred something within you, or gave you chills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more true stories of courage, resilience, and justice to life.